Okay. So the next country right now is China. From research, China has the largest extension system in Asia with about 700,000 extension workers serving over 300 million farmers. The system began in 1920 at Jilin University with help from the United States cotton expert. Over time, it evolved into the agricultural technology extension or ETH, especially after the formation of the People's Republic of China in 1949. So when the collective farming collapsed in 1970, after the Cultural Revolution, the government reformed the extension system to better reach farmers at the grassroots. Today, it remains strongly government-led, operating across five administrative levels to deliver agricultural knowledge and support. Now, China's agricultural technology extension system operates through five administrative levels, like I mentioned earlier, from national down to township offices that work directly with farmers. While this structure enables nationwide coordination, it creates a top-down approach that can limit farmers' participation and responsiveness to local needs. To improve flexibility, China is increasingly partnering with NGOs and cooperatives. Extension staffs are also encouraged to engage in agribusiness, which helps keep them motivated but can strain their resources. Despite these challenges, China's extension system supports about 20,000 of global food production and remains primarily controlled and funded by the public sector, maintaining strong government leadership. Now, India established its national extension system in 1953, and it greatly benefited from the Green Revolution in the 1960s, which helped the country become self-sufficient in food production. The extension system is decentralized and bottom-up. It's managed across national, state, district, and local levels with strong partnership involving universities, research institutes, private sector actors, and NGOs. So it is very much pluralized. However, India is still facing significant challenges, including low literacy and ICT knowledge among the ICT skills among farmers is very limited. There's limited access to extension services for women, and there are issues with and resource allocation issues, and there's a disconnect between research and extension efforts. The next country I'll be looking at is Indonesia. Indonesia first established her extension services in 1905. It initially focused on voluntary technology adoption for estate crops before shifting to food crops by their independence time. Now, during this independence, they started having compulsory regulation adoption. The country benefited from the Green Revolution of the 1960s as well, thereby implementing various extension initiatives. Now, in the mid-1980s, the farmer field school approach was introduced to tackle a rice pest outbreak, but was later deemed unsustainable, leading to a decentralized extension system. Today, Indonesia has a pluralistic system shaped largely by international support, particularly from the World Bank, but it still heavily relies on external aid intervention. In comparison to India, Indonesia has, in comparison, India has a more pluralistic extension system and is more self-sustaining, while Indonesia remains dependent, like I mentioned, on external interventions. The next country I'll be looking at is Ethiopia. Ethiopia's agricultural extension started in 1931 with the Ambo Agricultural School and an agricultural high school that emphasized farming education. So there was a collaboration between the university, the institution, the high institution at that time, and the high schools to create an extension system. Later, the Ministry of Agriculture took over the extension system from them in 1943. And in the early 1950s, Ethiopia established the Imperial Ethiopian College of Agriculture and Mechanical Arts, now Alameya University, modeled after the US land grant system. Now, Ethiopia has the largest extension system in Africa, like you've seen on the slide. However, when control shifted from the university to the ministry, services became less accessible to farmers and more to small scale farmers and more focused on landowners and commercial farmers. So things became very costly, and eventually they realized that this was not the best approach. So they became more participant oriented. So um, Ethiopia launched the participatory demonstration and training extension system in 1995, which brought up the bottom-up approach and gave more power to regional authorities to take over the extension system. Now, the next countries I'll be looking at in Africa is Kenya and Nigeria. Now, in the East Africa, Kenya has the largest extension system, but it started with a top-down approach, right? After their independence, before they changed from a bifurcated colonial system to an integrated model. By 1980, there was a growing recognition that this approach was not meeting the needs of smallholder farmers. So the World Bank assisted in a lot of reforms that shifted Kenya towards a decentralized system where local needs were better met. So despite this progress, Kenya's extension still struggles with low level of specialized skills, where the working force are becoming aged, and there's limited youth participation in agriculture, and obviously the big elephant in the room, persistent funding and policy gaps. Now in Nigeria, on the other hand, Nigeria started independence few years after started their extension few years after their independence under the Ministry of Agriculture. So this extension started from five states before later expanding into all the 30, all the states in Nigeria at that time. So the approach was more of training and visits, one-way communication model. Well, it was later restructured to which was later restructured to build a two-way connection with research institutes and universities, improving the relevance of the information provided. But Nigeria still faces a lot of extension issues, operational issues, especially in terms of policies, bureaucratic policy making, political pressure, and poor rural infrastructure, low farmer education, limited credit access, and staffing. Now, the two countries compared here, illustrate how important it is for extension systems to be responsive, participatory, and well-funded if they are to effectively support agricultural development. The United Kingdom, on the other hand, had its extension system, a structural extension system in 1946 with the creation of the National Agricultural Advisory Service and the Agricultural Development, later on, the Agricultural Development and Advisory Service, others in 1992. Right now, the Agricultural Knowledge and Information System is the main extension service provider in the UK. The UK has a laissez-faire model such that a lot of extension institutions are delivering extension services. So it is very much pluralized and polarized. Now, the extension systems obviously are funded by both the public and the private, and its focus area right now is on sustainable agricultural practices. So it's now more of efficiency of the food rather than economic value of their food production. Now, it started off as a farm visit demonstration farm workshop kind of, but now it's pluralized, like I mentioned earlier. So different models are being used in the extension system. The challenges remains that because of the polarized extension system, there are lots of duplication of roles in this extension, the roles of extension officers. And then despite all the funding, all the efforts put in, there's still low agricultural output. And the UK most times imports their food products, and there's fragmented public policy because of the divided United Kingdom, the Scotland, the Wales, the Ireland. So there are different models in these places, and this leads to fragmented public policies. And the last one I'll be looking at, the last country I'll be looking at is Germany. Now, just like the United Kingdom, Germany is part of the European Union, right? Now, the extension in Germany started off after the Irish potato famine with the creation of state agricultural office, chambers of agricultural and private advisors. Now, the extension system in Germany is very much client-centered, client-centered. So it is privatized, it's more privatized, and is also pluralized, right? It's partly state funded. Now, the unique thing about the Germany extension system is that it is more concentrated on group extension model and advice circles. So farmers have different organizations that they belong to, and this helps them to very much be involved in the extension system, their extension system. Now, the focus area also, just like the United Kingdom, is more into sustainable practices and environmental concern, because Germany is very much interested in, is very much is at the top front in renewable, in climate actions and sustainable development goals. Now, the strength of this particular extension system is that it's flexible, very competitive. It is efficient. It is efficiency focused. And then because of those groups, there's farmers participation, and it is research driven and innovative. So there's a lot of innovation, but then there are still challenges because the farmers find there are still cultural resistance in terms of adoption of innovations, and the ever-changing regulation of the EU makes it very hard to follow suit with policies, and there is no clear-cut extension agent role because of the pluralistic. So there are a lot of, would I say flex? Yeah, because of the flexibility of their rules, a lot. They do a lot. There's no clear-cut rules for them, and then because of the privatization, sometimes information is hoarded. Depends on who has the money, and then though there is job satisfaction, the extension agents fear that there could be job insecurity for them. And obviously, there are a lot of political pressure in the Germany extension system. Thank you.